Drive Time on 94.6. This is Radio Cabin.
Well, I'm delighted to welcome into the studio, Drive Time Radio Cabin 94.6 FM studios, Claire Sweet of Blueprint. A very good evening to you, Claire.
Hello, good evening, Peter.
Yeah, it's, well, budget day, I suppose, and this is where all the financial advisors come into their own. Not too many shocks, I don't think, in the budget so far.
No, a lot of the things that happened were things that we'd predicted earlier in the year would happen or had already been mentioned in the interim budget. Things like the increase in the personal allowance from April, it's moved up to £11,850 that you don't pay any tax on, which is only a rise of £350, but it's a move in the step direction towards the £12,500.
That was the
limit,
target for 2021.
Yeah, exactly. So it's moving in the right direction, which is good. It does mean that the average person is only going to see a change in their tax, a reduction of about £100, but it's a step in the right direction and worth doing. They've also put the higher rate band up. That's gone up by a little bit more, from 45,000 up to 46,350, and again that's on target to move up towards the £50,000 limit for 2020. So that's as expected, but they have done what they said, which is good.
Yeah, and that was in line with those targets. It seems as though the government had something like about £14 billion to play with, was the figure that I heard, that it could either spend on tax cuts or spending itself, reinvesting in the country, if you like, I suppose. And as those tax cuts were in line with what they were going to do anyway, it seems as though what they've done is actually put things in place to strengthen the economy.
It does. I mean, with any government, they have to do the same as any family does. You've only got one pot of money and you have to choose how to spend it. And you have to do that in a government situation to try and benefit the most people in the ways that you've agreed that you're going to do in your manifesto, ideally, and to benefit the nation as a whole. They have to balance taxation. Obviously, taxes raise money, but people don't like paying any more tax than they have to. But equally, we need money to spend on things.
And some interesting things as well. I mean, I have an electric car. I will hold my hand up and say that. It's an all-electric car. It's not a hybrid. It's a proper electric car. So I was delighted that actually he's put £400 million in for improving the charging infrastructure around the country. £100 million for the plug-in car grant. I assume that's the where you have the plug-in pods on the side of your house, on the driveway. I'm assuming that's what that's for, because when I got an electric car, I got a grant to get one of those, and money for research and development. But a good thing I saw was for folk who use their electric cars to go to work.
Yes, they've put a tax break in that means that you won't be penalised with a benefit in kind for doing that, which is the only type of mileage effectively at the moment that you won't. But we'll have to see, obviously, as more people take electric cars, whether or not this has the impact that they hope and helps move people towards sort of cleaner energy. They have also put some things in place with increasing tax on some diesel cars and on the company car rates for some diesel cars. It won't affect everybody, but depending on emissions and the age of the car, it could do. So that could be either an excuse to get a new car, or to just be aware of how your tax might change.
Or get a van, get a diesel van,
yes,
because White Van Man is not going to be hit.
No, exactly.
Which I thought was quite strange, because there's probably more diesel trade cars of that size on the roads than there is cars. So anyway, that's that. With that, the duty on petrol was frozen.
The 8th year,
yeah. So that's good news for those who have to fill up at petrol stations. I don't, of course. The national living wage is going to go up from April.
Yes, so that goes from £7.50 to £7.83 for people over 25. It has also gone up for people who are under that as well, which is great. Gives people a chance to actually catch up with some of the inflation type price increases that they've seen this year, and just means that they can continue to afford to spend in the way that they have. So yeah.
Yeah, and the good news for small businesses with VAT as well. I see the rates going up, or the threshold is going up.
That's always been the plan, and it's, I suppose, any government's problem with small businesses is trying to balance what they can charge and encourage people to still go into business while maintaining the level of revenue that they need to come back into the country. So, yeah, for VAT, that's absolutely great. They've also said that they are going to continue with the £1,000 a year discount on business rates for pubs, which, in terms of keeping small local businesses going, could be, the decision between being able to run and not. And
good news for landlords, really, of pubs, because the beer duty's not going up either.
No, exactly. So beer, wine and spirits are all staying the same, with the exception of the strong white ciders, which they've said they're going to introduce a new rate for. I think it's to encourage more responsible drinking, and I know that Scotland have been talking about minimum price
units
and things
that's
like
right.
that. So
yeah.
I think it's all to do with healthier lifestyle and trying to encourage people to make better choices.
But they fought shy of putting a minimum alcohol price on.
Yep.
Which is interesting, seeing as the Scottish government have decided to do that. Further good news for businesses, I see, is that the switch from the retail price index to the consumer price index being brought forward by a couple of years.
Yep.
That's going to save businesses money.
Yeah, no, that will save some businesses money, which is good.
Yep, something like 2.3 billion over the next 5 years, according to the Chancellor's calculations. One thing I did see was on councils, local councils are going to be able to charge 100% council tax on empty properties.
Yes.
Whereas at the moment there's a sliding scale at the moment.
There is. They don't pay council tax on the first few weeks. I think the idea is that if you are renovating a property or you're in the process of selling or that type of thing, that you shouldn't be penalised. But these are all moves that are meaning that people who have second homes or holiday homes are going to have to factor that into their cost when they work out whether or not it's a viable option for them.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, that one, I think, especially if someone, for example, an elderly relative goes into hospital and then goes to a nursing home or something like that, then those rules about vacant properties are going to apply to that as well.
In most cases, there are benefits available for that. Council tax benefit is available to people in certain conditions. Certainly people have gone into long-term care for things like Alzheimer's and that type of thing. And in terms of means-tested income, can sometimes mean that they can get that reduced if they're retired anyway. But yeah, a lot of people could be affected by it. And it's something that they need to bear in mind.
Big one, stamp duty.
Yeah. This is
amazing.
Going to have an amazing impact. I mean, for clients that I see every week, I've got 3 sets of clients this week who are first-time buyers that I've put mortgage applications in for, who now are not going to have to pay stamp duty at all, or one set of them who are going to pay a little bit less because their property's just over the £300,000 threshold. So they'll only have to pay stamp duty on that little bit that falls above the 300,000. So for an average person, if they've got a £200,000 house, which for a first-time buyer around in this area is quite common, they're going to save around £1,500, which is more money they can put into their deposit and other things like that. So I think it will help a boost, and certainly I've got people who are going to be cheering about that one.
Yeah, and some commentary that I was listening to it on today, or this afternoon rather, after the Chancellor had sat down about this very subject, was that if you're going through the process now, I think the Treasury's rules on this are something like it's the date of completion that counts.
Yeah,
so
anybody who completes after today or today, so anybody who hadn't completed before midday today and completed at 3 o'clock this afternoon or whatever time, everybody then onwards is eligible.
It's incredible,
So
isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
and it's great.
Within the space of 60 seconds, you've suddenly got £1,500 in your pocket, or potentially, anyway.
Which is great, but this has a massive impact for first-time buyers because, unlike other fees and things like that, they can't add a stamp duty bill to their mortgage or to anything else like that because it's a tax charge and has to be paid separately, which means this is cash that they have to find either themselves or from the bank of mum and dad to actually pay for this. So I think it will make a difference.
Yeah, bank of mum and dad. Oh yes. And finally, from me anyway, inheritance tax changes. Didn't do anything else on inheritance tax that he wasn't going to do. It's in the second year, isn't it, of the plan. The threshold will go up Currently 325,000, but it goes up by 100,000, which refers to the property transfer.
Yes, that's right. So at the moment, each person as an individual has a £325,000 allowance, and anything under that doesn't have to have any inheritance tax charged on it. So for a married couple, on the death of the second person, that gives you 650, and the additional allowance means that if they pass on the family home to either children or grandchildren, there's another 100,000, so that then puts it to 750.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
It is. It's on a sliding scale. The plan is over the next few years to move it up to get to the £1 million mark, which should mean that a lot of people who have ended up paying inheritance tax just because property prices, particularly in the southeast, have grown, mean that they won't have a problem that they might. I mean, admittedly, there are still things to do with inheritance tax planning that we can help people with, but that's based on individual circumstances.
Yeah, and that will. A lot of that will come around gifts, the thresholds for gifts per annum and all that sort of thing.
Well, there are some things to do with gifts, but there are also simple things like putting life assurance policies into trusts so they fall outside of the estate. That then means that they're not counted for inheritance tax purposes, and it's a very simple thing to be done that can be done by any financial advisor. It's not something we get paid to do, but it's of enormous benefit to the client, so it's something that personally we do as routine. And there are lots of things that you can look at, say including gifts and things to reduce your liability if you think you're close to that.
Was there anything else of note that you picked up from the Chancellor's statement today?
There's a couple of little sort of quirky things. So the Millennials Rail Card, so at the moment there's a 16 to 25-year-old rail card. You'll be able to use it up to age 30 to give you a third of off-peak fares. It is £30 a year to buy, but if you do a lot of rail travel, I think you'll easily recoup that.
I mean, I think that's a good thing. I mean, I use a rail card. I paid £70 for a 3-year rail card, and I get a third off. And I would have said I've clawed that £70 back 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. And
so it's
for off-peak travel, anything sort of after 10 o'clock-ish, it can be really valuable. Obviously, there's more money that they've put in towards the NHS for England, which should help reduce waiting times and that type of thing, allowing them to see more people. Commitment to build 300,000 new homes a year, and quite a substantial budget to do that. But I think the other thing that will probably affect people locally is some of the additional money that's been pledged to go towards helping people on benefits with things like universal credit get paid sooner. So from January they're introducing the facility of a month's free advance, which they can have paid within 5 days, which is then paid back interest free over 12 months. So hopefully it should mean that families are not left without money for weeks and weeks on end while paperwork is caught up with, because like anything, sometimes the paperwork goes through quickly and other times it can take weeks, and if you're on the receiving end of that with no money, that could be quite a drastic thing.
As a financial advisor, would you say this has been a good, on balance, sort of set of proposals for clients that you'd be advising?
I think for everyday people, yes. I mean, first-time buyers want to buy a house. People don't really want to be in rented accommodation because the rental prices are going up, and some landlords are lovely and some landlords are not. So I think, for first-time buyers, it's absolutely great. I think that duty on beer, wines and spirits and things like that, a lot of people do consume something in moderation, and the fact the price will stay the same is great. Tobacco's gone up, but again, it's very much gone out of favour, and it's 28p on a packet, they reckon, which for people who are going to smoke, I don't necessarily think that will put them off. But I expect that tobacco duty will continue to go up on each budget. But yeah, I think additional money in terms of minimum wage coming up is a good thing, and hopefully something for most people.
Thank you, Claire. Good for businesses as well, I think, and thank you very much indeed for coming in to talking to us about it, and we look forward to seeing you again in the studios.
That's no problem, thank you.
Thank you, Claire. That's Claire there from Claire Sweet from Blueprint, just chewing the fat on the budget with us.
Drive Time on 94.6. This is Radio Cabin.